This is Max and Mia podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If you're new here, this is Max and Mia podcast, a podcast made for English learners. And if you've been with us for a while, well, you already know what's coming.
That's right. It's Wednesday, which means it's us, Matthew and me, Rachel, hanging out with you for the next little while.
So here's the deal. This is your time to just sit back, relax, and listen. No pressure, no tests, nothing like that. Just good conversation.
And while we talk, if a word comes up that's a little tricky or not super common, we'll stop and break it down for you. Simple as that.
Oh, and if you want to take it a step further, this is actually a great episode for shadowing. So if that's your thing, go for it.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so before we get into today's topic, have you seen the news this week about the cruise ship and the hantavirus?
Yeah, I saw the headline and just closed the tab immediately. I can't. We just got out of one of those things.
Fair enough. But to be clear, the WHO came out and explicitly said it's not the next COVID.
It's not the next COVID. That's a sentence I never thought I'd hear as reassurance. But the moment you see a virus trending, you get that feeling in your stomach. I immediately thought about the toilet paper shortage.
Oh, the toilet paper. Why was that the first thing to go?
I still don't understand it. COVID was a respiratory illness. What did people think was going to happen?
Mass toilet paper consumption, apparently. That and the sourdough bread phase. One headline, and I'm already back in 2020 stress baking. My bread looked like a dense, sad frisbee.
Mine didn't even make it to the oven. It's like muscle memory at this point. And honestly, if you're listening to this and you felt that same little jolt of panic when you saw the news, you're not alone. We all still carry that.
For sure. But again, the situation is contained, the WHO is monitoring it, and the risk is very low. So we're okay.
We're okay. Probably.
Probably. All right, on that note, let's get into today's episode, which I promise has nothing to do with viruses.
Thank you.
Ready?
Let's go.
All right, so if you were with us last Wednesday, you already know we covered a lot. Family, work, education, home life. And at the very end, we mentioned there was one topic we were saving, one that deserved its own proper space.
Money.
And if you missed that episode, we'll leave a card somewhere on the screen so you can go back and catch it. Genuinely worth it.
But today, that's where we're starting. And before we get into it, we actually want to ask you something. And we want you to think about it for real, not just keep listening on autopilot.
How's your relationship with money?
And before you think we've lost the plot, no, we don't mean a romantic relationship. We're not asking if you take money out to dinner.
Though, look, no judgment.
What we mean is more like, how do you see it? Is money something you think about constantly? Something that stresses you out? Something you try not to think about at all? Is it a tool, a goal, a source of anxiety?
Because people's relationships with money are really, really different. And a lot of it comes from how you grew up, what you saw at home, what you were taught or not taught about it.
For me, honestly, I'd say money is something I respect, but I don't obsess over. Like, I'm careful with it, I track what I spend, but it's not the first thing I think about in the morning.
That's very balanced of you.
I've worked on it. What about you?
I think I used to have a scarcity mindset around it. And scarcity just means the feeling that there's never enough, that it could run out at any moment. So I'd save almost compulsively, even when I didn't need to. Like, spending money felt uncomfortable, even if I could afford it.
That's actually really common, and it usually comes from a specific moment or period where money was tight.
Exactly. And I'm better now, but it's still there in the background a little. Like, I'll think twice before spending on something I'd consider unnecessary, even if someone else wouldn't think twice at all.
Which brings us to something interesting, because there's no universal relationship with money. What feels like being responsible to one person feels like being cheap to another. What feels like enjoying life to one person feels reckless to someone else.
And that gap, that difference in how people see money is where so much conflict happens. In couples, in families, between friends even.
Oh, friends is a big one. Like when you're out and someone suggests a restaurant that's out of your budget, but you don't want to say that.
Or when one person always picks up the bill and starts to quietly resent it.
Or the opposite, when someone never offers and everyone notices.
Money is social in a way that people don't always acknowledge. It affects everything.
That's right. Okay, now let's talk vocabulary because there are some really useful words and expressions around money in English that come up all the time.
Starting with something simple but important, to be broke. That just means you have no money right now. Not necessarily forever, just at this moment. I can't come out tonight, I'm broke until Friday. Very common, very casual.
And the slightly softer version, to be tight on money or to be a bit strapped. Strapped meaning stretched, like you don't have much wiggle room. I'm a bit strapped this month sounds less dramatic than I'm broke, but means similar.
Then there's to live paycheck to paycheck. That's when your money runs out almost exactly when the next payment comes in. No savings, no buffer. A lot of people are in this situation, and it's genuinely stressful.
A buffer, by the way, is like a safety layer, a small amount of savings that protects you if something unexpected happens. A buffer between you and panic, basically.
And on the other end, to be financially comfortable, which doesn't mean rich, it just means you're not worried. You can cover your bills, handle surprises, maybe save a little. Comfortable.
There's also to budget, which is just planning how you're going to spend your money before you spend it. Sounds obvious, but a surprising number of people never actually do it.
And a word that comes up a lot now, especially with younger people, financial anxiety. Just what it sounds like. Real, genuine stress or fear around money. Not just, bills, but actual anxiety that affects how you sleep, how you make decisions, how you feel day to day.
Which is more common than people admit, because money is one of those things people pretend to have more of a handle on than they actually do.
Everyone's figuring it out, honestly.
Okay, there's so much more we could get into here. Debt, investing, the psychology of spending, why we buy things we don't need.
That last one deserves a whole episode on its own, honestly.
It really does. But as a closing thought on this one, I think the most useful thing anyone can do around money isn't necessarily earning more or spending less. It's just getting honest about your own patterns. Like, where does it go? What do you spend on without thinking? What do you avoid looking at?
Because awareness is step one. You can't change what you haven't acknowledged.
Deep for a Wednesday morning.
I have my moments. And hey, if you want to share, how would you describe your relationship with money? Drop it in the comments. Genuinely, we read those, and this is one where there's no wrong answer.
Not at all. All right, should we keep going?
Yeah, and actually, the next topic is extremely interesting. It's one of those topics where everyone has something to say, a topic that I'm sure many listeners will find really useful.
Totally agree. It's a slightly more personal and intimate topic. The next topic will be dating.
Okay, dating. And I already know this one is going to be fun because everyone has opinions. Everyone has a story, and almost everyone has a bad one.
Oh, without question. I feel like this is one of those topics where the moment you bring it up at a dinner table, suddenly everyone has something to say.
Which tells you a lot about how universal it is. Like, regardless of where you're from, the whole experience of meeting someone, figuring out if you like them, figuring out if they like you back.
The anxiety of it, the confusion?
The confusion especially. Because honestly, I think dating has never been more confusing than it is right now.
I would agree with that. And a huge part of it is the apps. Like the whole landscape changed when dating apps became normal.
Which, when you think about it, happened pretty fast. 10, 15 years ago, it still had a bit of a stigma. Like, oh, you met online? Now it's just how people meet.
It's completely standard, and I get why people use them. You're busy, your social circle is fixed, maybe you've already dated everyone you know.
Which happens.
It happens, but at the same time, the apps come with their own set of problems, like the paradox of choice. When there are hundreds of profiles right there, it's actually harder to commit to one person.
Because there's always the feeling that someone better might be one swipe away.
Exactly. And that's a very recent psychological thing. Our grandparents didn't have that option. You met someone in your village, you figured it out.
Which sounds limiting, but also kind of freeing in a weird way.
In a way, yeah. No infinite scroll of potential partners.
And speaking of the apps, one thing that comes up a lot now is this whole conversation about who pays, the 50-50 debate.
Oh, this one.
This one. Like, should dates be split evenly? Should one person always pay? Does it depend on who asked? People have very strong feelings about this.
Very strong. And I think it's one of those things that reveals a lot about expectations in a relationship more broadly. Not just about money, but about roles, about what each person thinks is fair.
And it connects to what we were just saying about money, too, because for some people, splitting 50-50 feels respectful and equal. For others, it feels like a sign that the other person isn't really invested.
And neither side is necessarily wrong. It just depends on what you both expect, which is why talking about it matters. The problem is nobody talks about it. Everyone just hopes the other person has the same unspoken rules.
Which they almost never do.
Almost never. And then someone's quietly offended over a $15 lunch and the whole thing falls apart.
Over a $15 lunch. Happened to a friend of mine. I'm not making that up.
Completely believable. And then there's the whole thing about red flags, which, red flag, if you haven't heard it, is a sign that something might be wrong, a warning signal. If someone is rude to the waiter on a first date, that's a red flag.
Classic red flag. Or someone who only talks about themselves the whole time.
Or who mentions their ex every 10 minutes.
Every single one of those is a red flag, yes.
And on the flip side, people talk about green flags now too, things that are genuinely good signs, like someone who asks follow-up questions, who actually listens.
Who shows up on time?
Which should not be a green flag, but here we are. The bar is on the floor.
The bar is underground. But okay, what about you? Do you think social media and dating apps have changed what people expect from relationships? Like genuinely changed the expectations?
100%. And I think a lot of it isn't even conscious. You see these couples online, perfect pictures, perfect trips, perfect little moments, and it starts to feel like that's what a relationship should look like, even if none of it is real.
Or it's real, but it's the highlight reel. The best 3% of someone's relationship, packaged and posted.
And then you're in a real relationship with a real person who sometimes leaves the lights on and forgets to text back. And it feels like something's wrong. But nothing's wrong. That's just what it actually looks like.
Which is why unrealistic expectations is something therapists bring up constantly in relationship contexts. The gap between what we think it should feel like and what it actually does.
Exactly. And social media makes you feel like you're falling behind, like you need to settle down right now because everyone else is, which, by the way, to settle down is an expression that means to commit, to stop dating around and build something stable with one person.
Which, again, has different timelines for everyone. Some people want that at 25, others at 40, others never, and all of those are valid.
Completely. But I think before you can even think about settling down, you have to know your limits. You have to know your deal breakers.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right? And a deal breaker, for anyone listening, is something you absolutely cannot accept in a partner. Something that, no matter how much you like someone, you'd walk away over. Deal breaker. So, I have to ask, what is your biggest deal breaker?
Mine is a lack of curiosity. Like if someone has no interest in learning new things or asking questions about the world, I'd find that really hard.
That's actually a very you answer.
What's yours?
Dishonesty, in any form. I can work with almost anything else, but if I can't trust what someone says, it's done.
Fair. And what about you listening? What's your deal breaker? Drop it in the comments. No judgment. Genuinely curious what people say.
And if your deal breaker is someone who doesn't split 50-50, that's valid too.
Also valid.
Okay, a few more expressions before we move on because this topic has really good vocabulary.
To set someone up. That means to arrange for two people to meet because you think they'd be good together. My friend set me up with her coworker. Classic.
And a blind date is when you meet someone for the first time and you know almost nothing about them beforehand. No profile, no photos, just show up and see what happens.
Which sounds terrifying to me, personally.
Same. And to ghost someone. If you've been dating someone and then suddenly stop replying, stop texting, just disappear with no explanation, you've ghosted them. And ghost here is used as a verb, which is a fun little grammar note.
It is, and it's everywhere now. Almost everyone has either ghosted someone or been ghosted. It's a very modern phenomenon.
And not a great one, but there it is. All right, should we keep going?
Let's do it. And actually, this next one connects to dating in a way that might surprise you, because one of the biggest things affecting how we relate to people, how we communicate, how we even feel about ourselves is something we all carry in our pockets.
The phone.
The phone. So technology and screen time, that's next.
Okay, so the phone. And I want to start with a question that I think most people would lie about if you ask them in person.
Already love this.
How much time do you actually spend on your phone every day?
Okay, I checked mine recently, and I'm not going to say the number out loud.
Mine was embarrassing too. And the thing is, you don't even feel it happening. Like, you pick it up to check one thing, and then 20 minutes later, you've watched 3 videos about deep sea creatures and read an article about a bridge in Norway, and you don't even remember how you got there.
That's called scrolling mindlessly, by the way. To scroll mindlessly means moving through content on your phone without any real purpose or intention. You're not looking for anything specific, you're just going.
And it happens so fast because the apps are designed for it. This is not an accident. The algorithm knows exactly what to show you to keep you there longer.
Which is a slightly uncomfortable thing to sit with. Like, every time you think you're choosing to scroll, you're kind of being guided.
And yet, knowing that doesn't really stop you.
It doesn't stop me at all, which is either impressive design or mildly horrifying. Maybe both.
Both. Definitely both. And screen time is just the total amount of time you spend looking at a screen. Your phone, your laptop, your tablet, all of it. Most phones now track this for you, which is either helpful or a quiet judgment every Sunday morning when the weekly report pops up.
For me, it's always the second one. I see the number, and I put the phone face down immediately, as if that undoes anything.
The shame spiral. Classic. And okay, here's a genuine question. Do you think we've actually become addicted? Like, is that the right word, or is it too strong?
I think it's complicated, because addiction, as a clinical word, implies you can't stop even when it's destroying your life, and most people aren't quite there. But is there a compulsive element to it? Absolutely. Like, you reach for your phone before you've even consciously decided to.
That's what gets me. It's reflex at this point. I wake up and my hand is already moving toward the nightstand before I'm even fully awake.
Which is a genuinely strange thing to notice about yourself if you stop and actually think about it.
It is. And because of how much we're all on our phones, there's been this growing movement around what people call a digital detox. Detox comes from the medical word for removing something toxic from your body. So a digital detox is when you deliberately step away from screens, sometimes for a few hours, sometimes for days, to reset a little.
Which sounds great in theory, and I have never once successfully done it.
I did 3 days once. No social media, no news, no mindless browsing.
And?
And honestly, after the first day, it was kind of amazing. I read an actual book, not on my phone, an actual physical book. I went for walks without stopping to take photos of them.
See, that's the thing. You stop documenting and you start experiencing.
Exactly. And I noticed things, like small things, the sounds outside, the way the light looked in the afternoon, things that were always there, and I just wasn't present enough to register them.
That's almost poetic.
It was, genuinely. But then day 4, I was back on my phone, and it was like nothing had changed.
That's the hard part. It's not the detox itself. It's what happens after, when all the same apps are right there waiting for you. Nothing has changed in the environment. Only you tried to change temporarily, and the environment just pulled you back.
Which makes me think the problem isn't willpower, it's design. The phone is designed to win against willpower. That's kind of its whole thing.
That's actually a really good point. And I think people beat themselves up about it when maybe the more useful thing is to just restructure the environment a little. Put the phone in another room at night. Turn off most notifications. Make the friction slightly higher.
Small changes rather than cold turkey.
Exactly, because cold turkey almost never works long term, with anything, really.
And I do think communication has changed in a way that's worth talking about. Like, does anyone just call someone now without texting first to warn them?
No, absolutely not. That's basically a crime at this point.
Right? You call without warning and it's like you've shown up at someone's house unannounced. People panic.
Because a surprise call in 2025 means either someone died or there's some kind of emergency.
That is genuinely the vibe. And it's funny because calling used to be the normal thing. Texting was the new thing. And now texting is so normal that calling feels invasive.
Which says a lot about how quickly we adapt and about how communication is shifted. Like even at work, if your boss calls you out of nowhere, your heart rate goes up a little.
Even if it's literally about nothing. Hey, did you get my email? That's all it was. But for 3 seconds before you answered, you thought your life was over.
Every time. And tech savvy is a phrase worth knowing here. If someone is tech savvy, it means they're comfortable with technology. They know how things work, they pick up new apps quickly, they're not intimidated by new gadgets.
And then there's the opposite end, which is someone who's not tech savvy. Maybe an older relative who still prints emails. My uncle prints his emails. Every single one. He has a folder, labeled by month.
A labeled folder. That's almost beautiful in a way. He has a system.
He does have a system. I'll give him that. But okay, the bigger thing here is what constant connectivity does to us mentally. And I think one of the quiet casualties is deep focus, the ability to sit with one thing for a long time without checking something else.
Yes, this one I feel personally. Like I sit down to read or write or do anything that needs real concentration, and there's this itch after about 8 minutes, just a pull to check something.
Because your brain has been trained to expect a reward every few seconds, a notification, a new message, a new video, and when that doesn't come, it gets impatient, bored almost, even if what you're doing is actually interesting.
Which is a strange and slightly uncomfortable thing to realize about yourself.
It is. And to unplug is a nice verb for this. It means to disconnect from technology intentionally. I'm going to unplug this weekend means I'm putting the phone down and actually being present.
Which used to just be called existing.
It did. It was just called being alive. Now it's a whole decision you have to make on purpose.
Progress.
Exactly. And what about you listening right now? What's your screen time like? Are you a I know it's bad, but I accept it person? Or are you actively doing something about it? Let us know in the comments.
And if you've done a proper digital detox and it actually stuck long term, we genuinely want to hear that because I need proof it's possible before I attempt it.
Same. Actual evidence, not theory.
All right, one more topic and then we're done for today. And it's a good one to end on because it's about something that is genuinely hard to talk about as an adult without feeling a little bit embarrassed.
Hobbies.
Hobbies. Let's go. Okay, hobbies. And I want to start with a confession.
Oh, this should be good.
I don't really have one. Like, I actually sat down the other day and tried to answer the question, what are my hobbies? And I came up completely blank.
That's so common and nobody talks about it because there's this assumption that adults have hobbies. Like you're a full person, you must have things you do.
Right. But the reality for a lot of people is work, errands, maybe some exercise if you're disciplined, and then collapsing in front of something on a screen. And that's the week. That's the whole thing.
And there's nothing wrong with that, honestly. But I do think people feel a quiet guilt about it. Like if someone asks, what do you do for fun? And your honest answer is, I lie on the sofa and watch things. There's a pause, a little internal cringe.
Because it doesn't sound like a hobby. It sounds like recovering.
which is sometimes exactly what it is, and that's fine. But I think the question is that what you actually want, or is it just what happens by default because everything else takes so much energy?
That's the real question. And I think for most people, it's the second one. It's not a conscious choice. It's just the path of least resistance at the end of a long day.
And there's this version of free time that's become almost universal, which is binge watching. To binge watch means to watch multiple episodes of something in one sitting, one after another, without really stopping. You finish one episode, the next one starts automatically, and suddenly it's 2 a.m. and you have work tomorrow.
And binge on its own is worth knowing. It just means consuming a large amount of something in a short time. You can binge a show, binge a podcast, even binge eat. It always has a slight sense of excess to it, like more than you planned.
It does. It's a little bit, I know I should stop, but here we are, episode 7.
Episode 7, which I'm not judging. I've done it. We've all done it. But I do think there's something interesting in the fact that adults have slowly replaced doing things with watching things. Like at some point, the balance shifted.
And I think part of that is energy, yes, but part of it is also fear of being bad at something. Like when you're a kid, you pick up a paintbrush and you paint a terrible tree and you're so proud of it. You show everyone.
And as an adult, if you try something and you're not immediately decent at it, there's this voice that goes, "Why are you wasting time on this?"
Which is such a strange thing to say out loud. Since when is enjoyment not enough of a reason?
Right. Since when does a hobby need to be productive or impressive?
Exactly. And to take up a hobby is the phrase you'll hear for starting something new as a regular activity. I took up cycling last summer, or I've been thinking about taking up pottery. It implies you're committing to it, not just trying it once.
And the barrier to taking something up as an adult is often not the activity itself. It's the feeling of being a beginner in public, like going to a pottery class full of strangers when you've never touched clay in your life.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Right? So people don't go and the hobby never starts.
I started learning guitar about 2 years ago, and I almost quit in the first month because I genuinely felt ridiculous. My fingers hurt, I couldn't change chords smoothly, and every video I watched online was someone who'd been playing for 5 years, making it look effortless.
The comparison trap.
The worst one, because you're comparing your week 2 to someone's year 5 and wondering why you're not as good.
And you didn't quit.
I didn't, and now I can play about 4 songs. Badly, but confidently badly.
That is genuinely the ideal outcome.
It is. 4 songs, badly, with confidence. That's the goal. That's all you need.
And a pastime is just a slightly formal word for hobby, something you do in your spare time to relax or enjoy yourself. Reading is my favorite pastime. A bit old-fashioned, but you'll definitely hear it.
And to unwind is what you're doing when you're deliberately releasing the tension of the day. I like to cook something after work to unwind. It's that intentional moment of switching gears, different from collapsing, slightly more active.
Which is actually an important distinction because collapsing and unwinding can look similar from the outside, but they feel very different inside.
Collapsing is, I have nothing left. Unwinding is, I'm actively choosing to come back to myself.
Well put. And then there's DIY, which stands for do-it-yourself. It means doing things around the home, repairs, projects, renovations, on your own rather than paying someone to do it. Building a shelf, repainting a room, fixing something that's been broken for 6 months.
Which has had a huge comeback. There are people on YouTube with millions of followers who just build things. Tables, sheds, entire rooms. And you watch them and something in your brain goes, I could do that.
Can you, though?
Sometimes not. But the point is, you try. And I think that's what's valuable about any hobby, really. Not the result, the trying, the doing of a thing for the sake of doing it.
Which sounds simple, but is actually kind of radical in a world that's constantly asking what you're optimizing for.
It is. Sometimes you're not optimizing for anything. You're just making a slightly lopsided shelf and feeling good about it.
And honestly, good.
And what about you listening right now? Do you have a hobby? a real one you actually do? Or are you in the I watch a lot of things and call it a personality camp?
No judgment. I'm right there with you.
But seriously, drop it in the comments. What do you do in your free time? And if you've taken something up recently, something new you started, we want to hear about it. Those are genuinely some of our favorite comments to read.
They really are. And okay, one more thing before we wrap this topic up, because I think there's something worth saying about hobbies that nobody really talks about.
Go on.
This thing where hobbies have become content. Like, people don't just bake anymore. They film themselves baking. They don't just run. They track it, post it, share their stats. And somewhere along the way, the doing of the thing got tangled up with the showing of the thing.
Oh, that's so real. Like, if you go on a hike and don't post about it, did the hike even happen?
Exactly. And I think that adds a layer of pressure that didn't used to exist, because now you're not just doing something for yourself, you're doing it for an audience, even if that audience is just 12 followers and your mom.
Your mom who likes every post within 30 seconds.
Without fail. But seriously, I think one of the most underrated things you can do is have a hobby that nobody knows about, something private, something just for you, not documented, not optimized, not performed.
Just yours.
Just yours. Doesn't have to be impressive, doesn't have to be productive, just something that makes the day feel a little bit better.
Which is, when you think about it, the whole point of a hobby to begin with.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap before we let you go, because we moved through a lot today, and you deserve a moment to sit with it.
We did. We started with money, how we see it, how it shapes our stress, our relationships, our decisions.
Then dating and modern relationships, apps, red flags, green flags, the 50-50 debate, and what unrealistic expectations actually do to real relationships.
Then technology. Screen time, scrolling mindlessly, digital detox, and whether anyone actually calls without texting first anymore.
They don't.
They don't. And finally, hobbies. How hard it is to actually have one as an adult, why binge watching counts even if it doesn't feel glamorous, and why doing something badly on purpose might be the best thing you can do for yourself.
4 topics, a lot of real vocabulary scattered throughout, the kind you'll actually hear in conversations, not in a textbook.
And if you made it all the way to the end, genuinely, well done. That's 30-something minutes of real English, and your brain has been working the whole time, even if it didn't feel like it.
That's kind of the magic of it. You're not studying, you're just listening. And then one day, the words are just there when you need them.
That's exactly it. So keep showing up, Wednesday to Wednesday. That consistency adds up way faster than you think.
And in the meantime, leave us a comment. Out of everything today, what hit closest to home? The money stuff, dating, the screen time confession, the fact that neither of us really has a proper hobby?
All of the above is a completely valid answer.
As always. And if you're enjoying the podcast, a review really does help. Or share it with someone who's learning English. One share goes further than you'd think.
All right, that's us for today. I'm Rachel.
I'm Matthew. See you next Wednesday.
Take care, everyone.
To keep taking your English to the next level, click on the next video or explore the others we've made for you.